So it's, as we know, it's not uncommon if we're working in something like this offering memorandum that we may have a lot of text flowing throughout the document, right? So if I skip down to, let's say, the second spread, there's page 2, there's a lot of text. Let me just bring up my pages palette. I've got a lot of text here on page 4, and so on and so on. So the point is, I've got a lot of text. And in prior movies, you've seen me place text like Microsoft Word text here in the document. So what I want to do for this is show you another efficient way that we can do that. I'm going to hit Control N on my keyboard to bring up the new document dialog box so you can follow along here. If you have InDesign open, I'm going to keep the number of pages to 1, and I'm going to select columns to 4. I don't need facing pages here, so I'm going to unselect that and then click OK. So this gives me a page with 4 columns. These are just columns. I did not create any text frames within these. So what I want to do is place some text here. To do that, the easiest way is to hit Control D on my keyboard to bring up the Place dialog box, or alternatively, I can come up to the File menu and choose Place. And I have a file here within the InDesign project files called cbrechardellis.docs, which is a native Microsoft Word document. So what I want to do is fill this up with text. And I have my 4 columns. So what I want to do is come up to the upper left-hand corner of my first column and click, and we can see that InDesign recognizes those columns and it fills that first column with text. But we can see if we look down here at the bottom that this is overset text. So what it means is I've got more text that can fit in this frame, so I'm going to have to do something about it. I'm going to hit Control Z on my keyboard to bring this back up. And the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to hold down the Shift key. And if I hold down the Shift key and click, InDesign is going to create additional text frames for me to allow that overset text to flow within these columns that I've created on my page. Pretty nice feature. But it can create a problem. Let's say that I am going to start this text over here halfway down the 3rd column, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key. Now you'll notice when I hold down the Shift key I get this little squiggly line next to where my cursor goes. If I hold that down, what just happened? Did you notice that? InDesign created a second page for that overset text because there wasn't enough room on the current document to place that text. And I may not always want that. If I've got my layout already laid out, or my page already laid out, I may not want that extra page because InDesign created it automatically. But in this instance, it's because I didn't have a second page created and I did not have text frames linking one frame to another. Right? If you remember from a prior movie, we can create a text frame and another text frame. And we can come in, and if we highlight, let's say this first frame, we'll see this little node. And if I select that, I get this little paragraph icon on my mouse there. And as I hover it over to this box, then it turns into a little link. So now if I come up to place my text, then we know that those are going to link together. And it's not going to create another box for me because I've specified that those boxes are going to be there and that they exist, right? So what I want to do for this is show you another trick that we can do to prevent InDesign from creating that extra page. So I've got my text here, and what I can do is I'm going to click right where we clicked before, where InDesign decided to create another page. We did that by holding down the Shift key, but what I want to do now is hold down Shift Alt. And you'll notice when I hold down Shift Alt that it gives me a down arrow. And if I click, it's going to place that text, but it's not going to create an extra page for me automatically. So that's a really neat trick to know as well. So what if I'll hit Control Z to back up, and I want to get rid of that placeholder text, because what I want to do now is select multiple forms of text to place in here. So I'm going to select that CB Richard Ellis text, and I'm going to hold down the Control key and select my dummy text, and then I'm going to click Open. Now when I do that, look at my cursor very closely. You can see that it has a number 2 closed in there. And if I use my arrow keys, I can shift to the second set of text that I've selected. So this would be 4 or 6 items of text in different Word documents that you've selected. And you may want to come in here and let's say we're going to place our CB text in column 1, and we're going to place our placeholder text in column 3. So that's just an easy way that InDesign allows us to place text. And that multiple Word document instance also applies when you create your own text frames. Right? In this case, I'm not linking these frames, but I'm hitting Control D. I'm going to go ahead and hold down the Control key to select these. So now I can just go whoop, whoop, just drop them right into the frames that I've created, just like I did with the columns that I created. Now here's an interesting fact, and you're not going to notice it in this training, but if you're, as of CS5, if your text in Word is formatted, you can import that formatted text. And the beautiful thing about it is if your formatted text matches your paragraph or character styles here in InDesign, InDesign will swap those with your InDesign paragraph styles, which is pretty nice. But in earlier versions of InDesign, you could not import formatted text. And then in mid versions of InDesign, you could import formatted text, but you had to reformat it. So the general rule of advice that I was giving for CS3, for an example, would be import the text, but import it without any formatting so that you can apply your own paragraph styles. But now, with everything kind of standardized, if you apply formatting in Microsoft Word, try to make sure that it has the same formatting that you use in InDesign, because if you import it, then InDesign kind of takes over and says, well, now you're going to become the InDesign standard for this formattings. And we're going to talk about paragraph and character formatting in later movies, which is kind of why I didn't jump into it here. But the more you know.